a very long time. I'm Brian Schneider. No, just kidding. I'm not in fact Brian Schneider. I just play one on TV. Uh, I am Alex Shvartsman. I used to play Magic many, many, many moons ago. Most people have forgotten of my existence, and
Yeah.
rightly so. And these days, I write books, translate fiction, design video games, and work on all sorts of really cool creative projects in film, in television, in all sorts of just interesting and creative industries. And I like to describe myself as somebody who just wears a lot of hats, a lot of different hats, and juggles them. But they're all somehow related to science fiction and fantasy, which is sort of my first love even before magic.
Yeah, the people who are listening to this on the podcast, they won't know that you're not wearing a physical hat. There's no,
Well,
you wear many hats, but not obvious physical ones.
I probably should have corrected that had I actually thought of it in time. But yes.
I've never seen you in a physical hat, but I met you a long time ago. I met you 30 years ago, and you were one of the people that I would email talking about Magic before there was even a Pro Tour. I think we would talk about decks and whatnot. So I've known you forever, but like, how did you even get into playing Magic? I think we should start from the beginning and then end at the most interesting part,
Sure.
which is today.
So I walked in on the first day of my college experience, of my limited college experience, because I dropped out. I went to Brooklyn College, which may be why I dropped out. And on my first day, I walked into the school and I found the science fiction club, as one does, which was also happened to be like the gaming club and everything else. And I saw people slinging magic cards. And that looked really interesting. In fact, I owned the deck, which I purchased at some video game, like maybe like EB Games or one of the video game stores a couple of years prior. But I looked at the rules and did not feel like I was smart enough to learn this game. It seemed really arcane and
Crazy.
confusing at the time. And as most of the people who played Magic for a long time know, it is not a game that you want to learn from a rule book. You really want somebody explaining it to you. And so I walk into this club, and of course they're like, "Oh, I'm like, this game looks interesting. I think I have a deck." And they're like, "You do? Bring your deck. We'll teach you how to play." And that's how I was suckered in. Very quickly after that, I one of the things that I did early in my college life is I joined the college newspaper.
Uh,
College newspaper received an invitation to cover the Homeland's pre-release, which was taking place in New York City, and that was like the first official pre-release I think that Wizards ever had.
that's pretty wild.
So I went and I got to meet a bunch of designers, and I got to interview the designers of Homelands. At the time, of course, I did not know that Homelands turned out to be one of the weakest Magic sets of all time.
Ever. Yeah,
But it was
just terrible.
great for me. It was a great experience. I enjoyed myself quite a bit. And I was just really drawn into the game, drawn into the fantasy elements, into the strategy elements. It was pretty much a perfect game for me. And then I was introduced to this concept of neutral ground, which for those who are newer to this game was an iconic game store for many many years in New York City. That was pretty much like the mecca of Magic players anywhere. And I started going there regularly, and then I got a job in the city, and I would be able to go there pretty much like multiple times a week, even on weekdays, and kind of never look back. My following 5 to 7 years of my life was all about Magic.
Yeah, I want to talk about something, a commonality we share that we didn't know we shared until now. But I worked for the college newspaper at the same time as you. I worked for the Brown and White at Lehigh, and I was a photographer, a writer, and I developed the film in the darkroom that actually made it into the paper. I'm kind of interested in like what else you covered. I know it's weird and not we couldn't have expected it, but I ended up like ghosting Ralph Nader one day and took his photos for the paper and Lewis Black. And so like, are there any other adventures like that up beyond Homeland? Homelands is like a height. Anything
Well,
else?
I didn't stay with them very long. I've only stayed at Brooklyn College for a semester and a half before I
Oh, all
dropped
right.
out and never looked back. But I did cover mostly the sort of like the lighter stuff. I didn't see any politicians, and unfortunately, I did not get to meet Louis Black because that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
But
he's
I
pretty wild.
I covered things like the movies. I wrote like movie reviews and like sort of pop culture related stuff back when pop culture related stuff was not as widely covered as it is today. There was no Comic-Con in New York City back then. But I got to cover some fun topics like that. And so when we received like movie tickets or invitations to cover like a weird card game that was happening in Manhattan, I was the guy that they sent.
Did you know you were gonna write science fiction, sci-fi fantasy books then? Did you start writing them? When did that happen to you?
So I started writing when I was very, very young, probably around 9 years old, maybe 10. And of course, at the time, I was writing in Russian, which is my first language. When we left the Soviet Union and moved to the United States, I basically gave up on the idea of like being a professional writer or a professional journalist, which is what, little kids dream of being an astronaut or a firefighter. I always wanted to be a journalist. That
Yeah,
was,
yeah, me too.
that was my big dream when I was like 5 years old. And so I gave up on it. English is my third language. I didn't think I would ever speak it well enough. And I was too afraid to try my hand at it until I was well into my 30s. So it really wasn't until much later in life, long after my magic epoch, that I started getting into like writing for publication. I started writing short stories and was as surprised as anyone that somebody would publish them. But I would sell one and write another one and sell that, and kind of slowly broke into that field because I didn't know anybody when I started writing. I didn't know any publishers. I didn't know any other writers that I could like network with or learn from, and it was just a really from the ground up experience.
Yeah, I wanna talk about your playing days a little bit. Like, you are someone who, in my mind, changes a little bit from the beginning. You're like a New Yorker, and then you're on this Boston team, and then you're going to Japan a lot. Like, walk me through your journey there.
So I was always, from the early days of Magic, I was always a networker. I always felt that like Magic was all about information and being connected with great Magic players from around the globe, especially then as like email became more commonplace. Like the dojo came to exist, all that stuff. So I was always plugged in to the other players, and I was willing to work with anybody as long as I liked their personality and kind of we got along, and so we started by putting together the first Magic team that was sort of like not based locally, because at the time it was all about location. It was like you had teams like Target, which was based in New Jersey. You had Yormouth Games in Boston. You had the Neutral Ground guys, which like weren't really a team, but a lot of them tested together. And so we started the team called the Legion, and the Legion had members all over the place. I mean, we had people in France like Raphael Levy and Manuel Bevon. We had Alan Palmer in California. We had all sorts of different people, and we would share information. And it worked for a little while, but really, you needed kind of a more tight local group to test with. And I was very close friends with Justin Gary and some of the other guys from Boston. So I ended up joining their team despite everybody making fun of me. It's like, hey, you joined the Boston Red Sox while being in New York. But yeah, it was a good experience. Still in touch with some of those guys. I work with Alan right now
Mhm.
on projects. So yeah, I mean, I've kept touch with many of my Magic friends. I mean, this is why we're talking right now, right? I mean, we've stayed in touch on and off for decades at this point. It's
Yeah,
scary how.
it's pretty wild. I think we're all still like 18 or in our 20s whenever we get together.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, like we don't evolve beyond beyond that. No matter, we'll get to it, but we're both like, gaming dads. There's like a different kind of psychology that goes with it. You mentioned you dropped out. I dropped out of college at one point too, right? Um, Not in like a Steve Jobs, it's cool way, but but it's like, this doesn't make any sense kind of way. I went back, but like it definitely didn't make any sense to go there versus pursuing a real interest in exploring the world. So, um, well, that's fun. Yeah, Japan is the one that was interesting. I went to Yokohama for that Worlds in '99, and I don't, you're Hall of Fame eligible, I would guess. You did well on the Pro Tour, but also like, what were you doing in Japan? Were you in some sort of band on the side that like only covered Led Zeppelin or something like that? We went to a bar at Worlds that year, and we played at a Pink Floyd specialty bar, and so I got to get up on stage with the owner and whatnot. What were you doing in Japan?
So, rewinding a little bit more,
Oh,
my first international tournament was actually in Spain, Spain or Portugal. I think it was Spain,
mhm.
and I went to a Grand Prix there, which I had a really great experience where I just kept butting heads with Kai Bude, and that's where I met him, and I beat him twice. And only lost to him the third time we played, which was in the finals. So I ended up, taking second place at my first international Grand Prix. And I kind of got the bug and I started just traveling to the Grand Prix championships around the world, probably several years before it became a thing where like a bunch of people started doing it.
Yeah,
And
you were the first person. I'm like, what is he doing?
yeah, and so
It
I
was
was
pretty
also
cool.
the first non-Japanese player to win a Japanese Grand Prix. So I was kind of for a while there when I would travel to a Japanese tournament, I would make sure to bring like signing markers because I had to sign like hundreds of Magic cards, which was a really I think I've to date I think I've signed more Magic cards than I've signed books, which is I'm hoping to reverse that eventually.
It's
But
pretty funny.
it was a nice experience, and what really got me going is that at the time that my source of income was buying and selling cards, and Japan was perfectly tailored for arbitrage. So you had cards that were almost worthless in the United States that were going for like tens of dollars in Japan, which at the time was a good margin because like you didn't have really hundreds of dollars unless it was a mox or something.
Mhm.
And then you had vice versa. You had cards that were worthless, in Japan that were worth a lot in the United States. Furthermore, all the Japanese players wanted English language cards, and all the American players at the time wanted Japanese language cards because they were still new and it was sort of like very fashionable to play with them. So people would very gladly trade you one for one. And both of us would walk away feeling like we got the better end of that deal, which is really the best trade for any kind of like business transaction that you can make where both people are happy, right?
Yeah.
So I started, doing these like combining my Japanese Grand Prix travel with basically like going there knowing that I'm going to make money regardless of how well I placed at the Grand Prix. And then Pokemon came out. And
Oh,
Pokemon,
yeah.
this was like the very early days of Pokemon where it just blew up. It was incredibly hot, and Japanese promotional cards, which were again pretty much worthless in Japan, and you could get them from the Magic backpackers that you dealt with for Magic cards for next to nothing,
Yeah.
and the margins on them were just astronomical, like hundreds and hundreds of percent. And so I would just go back and forth, and there was a period of time where maybe about 9 months where I would fly to Japan every 3 weeks or so, and I would just stay there for 48 hours, and literally just people would come and see me in my hotel room, and we would just trade Magic cards for Japan, for Japanese Pokemon, and like buy and sell cards from each other. So just like appointment only type deal. So that was my business. That's how I actually made my first like reasonable amounts of money, which ultimately led to me opening a game store like down the line. So that's what I was doing in Japan. I was, I wish it was something cool like playing with a band, but
No,
it,
I think it's incredibly cool. Each time I talk with someone new, I just remember like you're like the most interesting person in the world. You're like you're just an explorer going off and like doing things that why does someone just goes and makes that work? And it really worked. And so I just find it the most fun. There's this spirit behind what I've been doing, which is like doing things the right way is not the right way. And going out, going off and being bizarre and smart is much better than like following the pack, so to speak. That's how I feel. But it's hard to go off and do that. Not that you are a wild card per se, but like I love what you've done in your journey, right? Um, like I am interested in the game store. I never went to King's Games in Brooklyn, but I am curious. Like it's not that hard to see now how that would come to be. But you're like a I visited you like 25 years ago. We were both playing in an event. I think we were working with Kai Bude's team at that point for like some tournament type that doesn't exist anymore, a Masters or
I
something.
think it was like maybe like a team Rochester draft because they were very very good at that
Yeah,
for a week. Yeah, it might have been that.
yeah. I think you. we're not just entrepreneurial like when it came to Magic, but like you were you were like an investor in all kinds of different things in Brooklyn. I don't know if you want to speak to that and to like how you got into the games store side of things. It's just I love how your story goes.
Well, the game store seemed like a natural extension of what I was already doing because at the
Yeah,
time when I was traveling to all the Pro Tours, I also was taking dealer tables at Pro Tours, right? I didn't have a company per se, but whatever, we were calling ourselves. We had tables at like Pro Tours and Grand Prix, and it was I needed a physical store so I could be buying like sealed product from real wholesale and kind of like building it up. And I got together with some like-minded local friends, and we opened up King's Games. This was back in 2002. So at this point the store is still going strong, and we're one of the oldest, stores probably in the country. Because like there's not that many that survive past that
yeah,
5 year mark or so.
yeah,
And we, because of the Grand Prix travel, I got to visit game stores all over the world, and I would make it a point to go to stores in Japan, in Australia, other places, and I would note things that they were doing differently from the American game stores. And when we were opening up, I tried to kind of steal all these best ideas and combine them together. So, for example, this is very early on, and it seems kind of obvious in retrospect today, but we were one of the first like hybrid game store internet cafe setups that also had consoles. Like at the time, it was Xbox and PlayStation 2. Those were the top consoles, and so
yeah, yeah.
we would hold Magic tournaments, but we would also hold like Halo tournaments, or Halo or Halo 2. I don't even remember anymore. Where like because Microsoft would like sponsor them, so like hundreds of people would come and they would to like make an appointment and come in waves because we couldn't fit them into the store. So it was an interesting experience. It was also challenging because when I opened the store, Neutral Ground was still around. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's an 800-pound gorilla. Like we were not even trying to be like a premium Magic store because there was no chance we could compete with them on that.
Mhm.
Uh, they had the location because they were like in Manhattan, whereas we were in South Brooklyn. They had the name, the reputation, everything. So what we did is we focused on a lot of the games that they were not supporting as actively. So at the time, Yu-Gi-Oh, which was it's not exactly like the most strategic game, but it was very very popular at the time and a large audience. So we're supporting that. I was also one of the designers of the Versus System trading card game, which was from the same company. And so, of course, because of that, we got on the bandwagon with that early on. And when Upper Deck launched a Premier Organized Play program, of course, we were the ones running it in New York and really in the entire tri-state area. So that actually helped us put us on the map quite a bit as well, and kind of allowed us to grow and build up. Despite the fact that again, Magic was something that we could never be number one at, while Neutral Ground was around, and that was fine. I mean, I think we coexisted pretty well, and there's plenty of other stores that exist now as well. And of course, we've gone through many, many iterations from being a tournament store and an internet cafe to essentially moving like 90% of our business online because that's what you have to do
Yeah.
these days. But the store is still going strong, and I'm thankful that it did well enough where for the past 10 years or so, I've been able to walk away from that and only focus like maybe 20 hours a week on the day job, but spend the rest of my time doing creative projects, which is, as you were saying, like like kind of like swimming against the current has always been a thing I think for both of us.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I'm really, really big on experiences and on trying and doing things that I've never done before, because that's what makes life interesting, right? That's what makes it worth living. And so trying out all of these different creative endeavors and participating in things, like, that, you haven't done yet, setting it as a challenge for yourself is what makes it, what gets me going every day. I'm not afraid of hard work as long as it's interesting work and something that I consider to be fun.
I think you're indirectly the reason we're talking right now in front of people. I feel like I came to Alex like, I don't know, 2, 3 months ago. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, Alex. I wrote a book. I don't write books. You write books. Like, what is going on? And I told you what my target was for like selling in volume, and you were like, you were not trying, Brian. And so I was like, all right, I have a goal now. Alex has set the pace for me. But it has been like the most fun to talk to these different people. I was kind of curious what your game is now. Like, what's your best game? Are you good at a game? If we played a game, would we both be terrible at it now, even though we were good at games 30 years ago? What's if we
Oh,
were going to bet a play for $1, Alex, what game would we play for that dollar?
okay, so yes, I am absolutely terrible at this point compared to how
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
because I approach gaming these days as a much more of a casual player. Like I
yeah.
can still, put up a good fight. Like if we take like old Magic decks from back in the day, I can compete against the best of them. But as far as just playing games for fun, my game of choice these days is Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
Oh,
Uh,
cool. Yeah, I've heard
yeah,
that
it's
one.
very. It doesn't require you to really do any deck building, but it's basically a board game that exists within Hearthstone, and I have a lot of fun with it. It's challenging enough, but also kind of random enough and they keep changing it up. So I quite like that one. So if I had to
Mhm.
play somebody for $1, I don't care if I would win or lose it because again, casual. But that would probably be the game. Of course, that's not counting the game that I'm working on, which is of course that's a different story. I mean, that's your own baby. So I would dearly love for people to play that game, but it's not multiplayer.
Oh, interesting. That's cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I okay. Battlegrounds. There are probably many that we know that would compete with you for $1 at Battlegrounds, but it would be a fun match, it sounds like. Um,
Yeah, and
would you pl- what
I'm pretty good at it, but I'm certainly not at the level of like going and like playing like in-person championships or anything like that. I just don't try that hard. Like I will pick I'll pick a hero based on how fun that hero is for me to play, as opposed to like the one that's the most likely gonna give me a chance to actually win the game. So
that makes sense. Would you play Hearthstone Battlegrounds and Jiu-Jitsu at the same combine them together? This is I don't know if you know what I'm referring to here.
yes,
But
I do. There's a chess boxing thing, and
yeah.
I like this version better because it doesn't involve getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would if I had to choose between the two, then yes, I would reluctantly do the Hearthstone Jiu-Jitsu thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so Albert Burkhead and Raphael Levy are going to do a magic jujitsu thing in like a month.
Oh,
So
that's
it's like
awesome.
he's like in the chat. So it
That
was
is
your window.
awesome. I hope
He
it's
would
supported. I would love to see that.
well, Albert, you have your mission. Get a copy to Alex. Um, yeah. Let's switch to like parenting in games. Like, how did you like approach games as a parent? You have child.
Yes. So my son is he's a college student now, so he's gone through this whole transformation, and I was always kind of somewhat hoping that I would get back into Magic because he would get into Magic at some point. But of
Uh-huh.
course, at the prime Magic age, when he hit that prime Magic age, we got the pandemic, so he kind of never really got to do that. He did play Hearthstone with me, so there's that, and he does go to board game cafes and plays with his friends. As that's one of the things that he does for fun. So there's definitely, but very casual. I mean, he mostly plays
Yeah.
party games. I saw gaming as a way to introduce him to problem solving. I'm
Yeah.
sure you probably have that experience. Probably anybody participating in this who is a parent and who is a gamer has had similar thoughts. It's always a really great, even from a young age, like people, I always tell parents, right, that are concerned about their kids getting into like these kind of games. I'm like, look, it's teaching them to read, it's teaching them to think critically, it's teaching them to do math, to do probabilities. Like, there's nothing wrong with gaming. Like, you have,
No, not at all.
unless you get really addicted and like it becomes gambling or something, like you're in pretty good shape there. So yeah, so my approach has always been to encourage it,
Mhm.
but also to let my son kind of pick his own interests and hobbies. And he ended up kind of going off into completely different directions from me. Like he's an enormous soccer fan, and like
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
into sports at all. But I've taken him to like live games and all that stuff because that's what he wanted. So he got really, really involved in that. He's also like super into Latin, and I don't speak Latin. I've never studied it, so that's also like a little bit different. But
Do they even have a Duolingo for that language? Is that a language people that's a question. I don't know the answer.
I believe they do.
Yeah.
He studied it in school, so he's actually a national Latin scholar. So
Oh, wow. Oh,
he's really into it. But he, he went to like college, I believe, universities as a high school student to compete in these competitions that basically combine Latin grammar, history of Rome, and and like Latin or literature, I guess. So it's like a three-person teams that would compete in these things, and he would be like their grammar guy. So he was really, really into it, and we both share the love of languages, but they're different languages. Like he speaks different foreign languages than I do for the most. I mean, there's an intersection to that Venn diagram, but so my whole thing has been to encourage his interest in his hobbies as opposed to trying really hard to like shove him into my own. So but yeah, gaming, of course, like it really warms my heart when he's interested in like, maybe the same movies or the same books as I am. And, sometimes it happens, and sometimes he's often doing his own.
yeah. You reminded me of something. Hades Town is playing, and we were driving by the billboard last night. My daughter is really big into theater, and part of it is because she's strategic. She really enjoys the theater and the musicals, but she also really enjoys not having to like run around on a field.
Right.
But she's transparent about it. So she's whenever there's like a musical thing, it's like, all right, we're going to see if we can get tickets to the big show in town. And it definitely echoed. You
Have you
you made me a better dad on this call.
have you guys gone to see Hamilton yet?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was spectacular, and we were super geeking out about it, like when it first came out and afterwards, and so yeah, that's definitely my favorite musical and I think Josh's favorite musical as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think it's theirs too. That we took my niece there into the one in San Francisco, and we know all the music and stuff. We're pretty deep down the well of Lin Manuel Miranda, and anything that comes on Disney, like we know pretty well too. I'm a master of the Descendants universe now, which I hope I never have to make a game in that universe. But if I had to, it wouldn't be the worst. You're like Lego Descendants. Okay, sure. You can
It's
do
how you
worse.
okay with to do it, right? Like, I mean, it's just another challenge.
Yeah, Hamilton reminds me of the Got Milk commercial. Well, that's
We
something
have
we'll
fun.
talk about.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the correlation is there, Albert, but
No.
that definitely is an interesting statement.
Yeah, I feel like I will ask you about that on Friday. I think I talked to Albert Burkhead or Mason Trace, whoever you want to be on Friday. Magic historian. Um, I'll send a link. Yeah, I kind of want to get into your books. You just sent a book off to become real, right?
Well, that happens all the time. I've been working on so many different projects, both as an author and as an anthologist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really fun because you get to work with all of these spectacular writers who are like really like giants of the field, and they'll write a story for you for an anthology if they feel like you know what you're doing, essentially. So like yeah, I mean I worked with George Martin and Neil Gaiman and Piers Anthony and Mike Resnick and all of these top tier authors. And my most recent anthology had stories from Alan Dean Foster and Esther Friesner. So the most recent book that is going off to the printers soon is another anthology, which is called Unidentified Finding Objects 10. So it's the 10th book in the series. It's an
Awesome.
ongoing series that I've been doing for the past 13 years. And the first book in that series has sold over 100,000 copies. So that's the
Wow.
very, very few books can say that. Now, doesn't mean that I've made a lot of money because many, many of those sales were like promotional type things where you'll sell like thousands of copies and break even.
Mhm.
But the goal here is to get people reading this. It's not really, I mean, I'm not trying to like make a full-time living from writing or editing. So the way that I keep score is just to see how many hands I can get these books into.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, it's definitely like it feels like it's for the joy of sharing or for the joy of doing or connecting people with ideas and whatnot. It's not, I could certainly relate
If you're a
with,
creative person, right? Like, I mean, unless your livelihood really depends on it, like if you design a really cool game, you're gonna care more about how many people have played that game than like how much money you've made of that game for the most part, right? Like, I mean, I imagine that's universal for people who like write music, for people who paint, for like anybody like that. Like, I mean, they want that work to get out there. Right. So that's for me, the same is true for books. And it's very nice when people give me money for them. I mean, I'm not going to say no to that, but ultimately I care more in a way that's like just to get those works read because it's something that lived in my head and then was poured onto the page and then somebody else could like kind of absorb it into their mind, which is just crazy when you think about it, right? Like when you're hallucinating words onto dead trees and then other people like read it and hallucinate those same words again.
yeah, it's a fun species when things are going well. When things are going well. Yeah, I was going to put you to the test. I was going to be like, okay, Alex, look, I'm a really powerful wizard. You can only make games or write books for the rest of your life. Pick one. Which which one do you do? Um, because
I would easily write books.
you would
Everything
write books.
everything else is a side quest. I mean, I enjoy all creative work, and like I said, like I've been very fortunate in that I've gotten to work with TV show people, I've gotten to work with movie people, video games, board games, it's trading card games, etc. And that's for me like it all goes back to actually writing stories. And Albert is publicly shaming me because apparently I missed a friend request from him, and I apologize, Albert. I
I did
will.
the same thing. Let's be clear. He was like, "Let's talk about this deck that you built." And I was working at a crazy startup at the time, and I'm like, "You have no idea the pressure that I'm under. I can't click yes to anything right now." But
I miss a lot of that stuff because sometimes it comes in waves and there's like 20 or 30 requests that'll show up over a couple of days, like when I log into Facebook. So I promise I will find it again. And if you don't hear from me today, ping me again, please, Albert.
I think he's just saying you're interesting. He's like, "Oh,
Well, thank you. I mean, if that's the case, but either way, I don't like to leave people hanging.
yeah, me too."
I just, I'm not the most organized when it comes to social media, unfortunately. Like, I mean, I think I have a LinkedIn
Same.
profile that I haven't looked at since like 15 years ago or something. Well, not quite that long, but yes, Facebook is the one that I try to, kind of like visit most frequently out of all the social media. And so that's the easiest one to connect with me on because it just suits me so much better than like what do I know about posting pictures, right? Like
TikTok. Oh my god! I was like, "Hey, maybe I should market on TikTok and just try it out." And like the first video it showed me, I just automatically deleted it. Like I was like, I just like this so strongly that like I just can't even like open the app without deleting it. It's like it's words are comfort,
I
right?
I've done paid work for ByteDance and I'm still not on TikTok. I don't even have an account. I've literally done work for them. Like I've presented like at their headquarters and still would not make a TikTok account.
It's pretty funny. So you're working on a game now. You've worked on a bunch of different games. It's I think it's a common thread. I mean, most of us who played Magic we're still in touch with like made games at some point or make games as a part of that. It was definitely the category when I was itemizing like the who's who of what the class of 1997 has done since. It's like, wow, this cohort made a lot of games. But is there a game in particular that you want to work on that you haven't yet? What do you want to see in a game over the next like 5 years that reflects your values and what you would want to make?
So this may be stupid because it's certainly smaller and like kind of probably less impactful than what I'm working on now.
Mhm.
But I would really love to put out a trivia game. So I'm a big
Okay.
fan of trivia,
Yeah, me too.
and I feel as though most trivia board games are not well designed because they're not fun. Either they're too complex and you can't play them with people who are worse at trivia than you are, or they're just too casual and people who are good at trivia will not find them fun. And so I have actually worked at designing an engine that would fix that, and I have. But at the time, and I was doing more board game design at the time, I found that getting somebody to publish a trivia game was like the kiss of death. Like no company wants to touch it because it's such a niche sort of thing, and like I guess they don't see a good way to make it profitable.
Mhm.
So this game still the rule set exists, and I hope that one day I will sucker a company into potentially like putting it out and doing like all the hard work because really I mean I could throw it up on Kickstarter and like get it designed and like source all the components and all that stuff, but that's so much work. And so I would much rather work with a company that knows how to do that and will like kind of shepherd this game through the entire process and get it into stores and all that.
You're reminding me of a story about the great Eric Lauer. He and his family were playing Trivial Pursuit once. Around the time he and I were supposed to play in a pro tour with Justin Gary, so we visited Eric's house. And like right before that, they had tried playing Trivial Pursuit, but they just easily got all the questions right. And they were like, "Why is this a game?" And so you've kind of triggered this bizarre memory of this family that was way too smart, essentially destroying trivia. Never show the prototype to Eric and his family is my recommendation. But um,
Well, but that's exactly the problem I was trying to solve is what
yeah,
happens when you are playing with a dear friend of yours who just may be very smart but isn't good at trivia, right? Like, how do you make the game fun for both of you at the same time? And that's the
mhm.
problem that I try to solve with my design. Whether I succeeded or not, we will only find out if this game ever comes out, basically, right? But I'm pretty okay at game design, so I think it'll be at least not terrible.
Can I tell a trivia story? It's a bit of a
Sure.
tragedy. So my wife and I, we go on a weekly date night, and we went to my favorite sports bar in town. It's called Flatiron, and it just had its first trivia night in a long time. And the guy who ran it, really sweet. Everyone's really great, but they had a 10-point question, and we ended up losing by like 7. But the 10-point question was, can you name 10 of the 27 hosts from SNL who hosted 5 times or more? And I'm pretty sure we got 10 out of 10, but like they decided it was getting late and they just didn't want to count the question. And so instead of getting like plus 10 on everyone, they didn't count it. How should I feel emotionally about that? Should I? It's one of those things where it doesn't matter at all, but it's still unjust. What's your like formula for those situations? How do you,
I,
is it, yeah,
my
you know what
heart
I mean?
my heart tells me to experience rage because we're very competitive gamers. Otherwise, we would have never gotten into Magic in the
Yeah.
first place. But my brain is telling me that I had fun and I actually won by being able to name those 10 because I wouldn't have been able to do that. I definitely wouldn't get to 10. And so you guys did. So
Oh, yeah.
you won even though because you don't care what the prize was. You know that
Do
you won.
not.
And that's what matters.
Yeah, I don't take trivia night seriously at all. One thing that we don't talk about too much is when you make games a lot. When you're making Magic and you're like, oh, I play so many games against Matt Place and Devin Lowe and Mike Turian every day, Randy Bueller, and you're like, I just want to know if the game is made properly or not. You stop caring about winning or losing by and large. And so, after making games for 25 years, like I don't even think about winning or losing a game. Like it's like not the point of playing ever. So it's maybe I'm broken or maybe everyone else is broken. I don't know. But
No,
I
you
don't
you
I don't
you've
really
switched over to the designer mode. You're
yeah,
on the other
entirely.
end, like it's like being a judge at a magic tournament, right? Like you don't care about like the cool play, you care about fairness, and you care about making sure that like the gameplay and the rules are so you kind of approach the exact same scenario from a different angle, right? So as a game designer, like the number one question, and every step of the game design you have to ask yourself is how much fun is this? Right? Like, I mean, it's not about, oh my God, I pulled off like a broken thing and like I beat somebody by like a gajillion points. It's how much fun is it? And so and in a way, like writing books is the same way. right? Like you have to kind of entertain the reader. Nothing else matters. Like, I mean, you could, like do all sorts of weird things with your story, but the only important thing is the person just turning the pages, and are they delighted by what you're putting in there, whether it's because it's scary or tugs at their heartstrings or has beautiful passages or is funny. All of those are different elements that you know work for different stories, different styles of writing. But the only thing in the end that matters is does it keep you going? Do you want to just keep going? Do you
Yeah.
want to keep reading even though you know you should be going to bed?
Yeah, I found myself channeling Charles Dickens, I think, the most. Like, when I was writing, I was like, "Oh, I get what Dickens was doing." Like, not only did he have to pay bills, but it's like, you can get good story out fast if you're writing it a certain way, if you have a plan sufficient upfront. And it's interesting because so much of Substack is, like, into these more ornate novels that probably took, a decade to write, and you're like, "Those are wonderful, and I'm glad that I've read many of those," but, like, it doesn't fit into the modern lifestyle of, like, what people need in, like, a distraction culture. They need signal fast. They don't need, like, signal in a delivered complicatedly in, great depth. It doesn't map to our time very well, right?
I'll challenge you on that actually.
Boom,
To
let's
me,
go.
okay, so there are times when you want fast food, right?
Mhm.
You want like just a filling meal that's filled with like sugar and salt and all the things that like make tell your brain the food is delicious, right?
Yep,
And then there are times when you want to go in like a really nice like sit down restaurant, maybe like a Michelin restaurant, or maybe just something that's just really, really good where the chefs will use all these fine ingredients and cater that meal for you.
mhm.
And you, the same individual, will enjoy both at different times, right? So the same is true of reading. Like sometimes you just want a stupid story you can shut off your brain and just enjoy it for the plot or the jokes or whatever else, or the action. And sometimes you want that beautiful language and you want a book that's going to make you think. And so I don't think either one is the right answer. I mean, I think it's just a matter of just the ability to be able to select what you want at that moment. Like
Yeah,
you
I
never
like
go
that
to
counter.
KFC and a Michelin star restaurant at the same time.
It's a pretty good counter. I give you okay. I like that. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I see like when I'm working, I work in a hell-bent fashion and I don't have time for a lot. And so like my capacity right now, I'm reading multiple like 800-page books and it's, I'm not working, so it's fine. But when I am working, it's like my brain can't support certain activities, right? And so it is based on your circumstance and where you're at personally. And so, like, when I'm saying that, it's more like I suspect more people are kind of jamming themselves with information at a fast pace, but that might be wrong. That might just be my bizarro experience, and like I actually have no idea how most people are living.
Well,
You
so
know what I mean?
books are an interesting thing because you can't consume them too quickly, essentially. There are people
Hmm.
who speed read, right? But most people do not do that when it comes to fiction books.
Yeah.
And now that audiobooks have become such a big part of the equation, the interesting thing about audiobooks is that they slow you down way more, right? Like a book
Oh
that
yeah.
would take you 6 hours to read may take you 20 plus hours to listen to because we speak a lot slower, especially when you want like an actor who's doing like a nice performance of the book. We speak a lot slower than the speed at which we're able to read, even if we're not trying to speed read. So audiobooks actually slow things down. And people are very accepting of that because it also fills in the time where you wouldn't be able to read otherwise, right? Like you could be driving, you could be walking your dog, you could be exercising. And instead of listening to like news or music, you're actually consuming a book. So audiobooks have been like a lifesaver for me because I'm so busy, just like you are, just like I think, most people these days. I
Yeah.
don't have enough time to dedicate to just pleasure reading because when I read, I'm reading submissions, I'm reading books that I've promised blurbs to. So I'm reading things for a specific reason as opposed to just saying, hey, that book came out by an author I really like. I really, really want to just enjoy that book. And so that's what audiobooks are for me. Like, and I know it's not for everybody, but for me, that's my favorite format right now to consume books in.
Me too. I think I have an audiobook. I submitted it 3 days ago. I was like, I wanted to ask you. I'll have two anecdotes. One, like there were a handful of people that had very strong signal, which is that they only read with their ears. Like they no longer read with their eyes, and it's offensive to them that you would have a book with that you could see. It's like if it's not an audiobook, like make it an audiobook or you don't exist. So I was like, fine, I'll make this audiobook for you. But I noticed that you don't always have an audiobook, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And I kind of was curious, like, when do you want to have an audiobook versus not? Like, how do you think about it?
Well,
Like, is there, yeah.
there's never a wrong time to have an audiobook. The problem
Hmm.
is that if you're not doing it yourself, if you're using a professional to narrate an audiobook, it's the most expensive way to get published, right? So
Yeah, yeah. There's no,
depending if you're using somebody who is pretty good but is not like a celebrity or anything like that, you can expect to spend between like $200 and $400 per finished hour. So
mhm.
basically, like a finished hour means that not only did they narrate, but they also edited the, like got all the like excess like noise out, etc. So like the
Oh, yeah.
mirroring actually takes longer than the narration. So typically 200 per finished hour is a good price to pay for somebody who is good, like a fairly inexpensive price. And the more popular and like so well respected the narrator is, the more they will charge them that. So when you have a typical novel, that's going to be 10 hours or more on average, right? So that's $2,000 that has to be invested at a minimum. And that's not even accounting for the fact that most people just don't have the technical know-how to like, how do I upload an audiobook? How do I like make it available? Like it's a little bit, you know, more challenging than ebooks or even print books. So that's really the only reason not to have an audiobook. I do have audiobooks of all of my novels. I
Ooh,
also have audiobooks. I have an audiobook of my first short story collection, but not the second collection because my first collection is just outselling the second one by like many times to one.
that
So
makes sense. That makes sense.
it's just yeah, it makes sense that if the other one was selling better, I would invest money into like making it into an audiobook. But yeah, it's a big investment. But the novels, like, I don't know that I will ever have a novel that's not going to have an audiobook. I think that's just such a crucial
Yeah,
format. And because I'm an enormous fan of them, it also matters greatly to me that the book works in that format. So sometimes it actually changes the way that you write to make sure that everything that you're doing will work. You're not performing like acrobatics on the page that will not work in audio, but also selecting those narrators. And you don't always get the choice. A lot of the time, the publisher picks it up, and if your agent is good, they will get you veto power. So you, at the very least, you can kind of like triage where they'll give you like five choices and you can pick one, as opposed to just going with whoever they designate. And so I've certainly wielded that power to make sure that I got good narrators.
that makes a lot of sense to me. With this project, I didn't know I was going to make a book. So I was like, hey, I wrote enough content to put into a book format. Why would I make people wait for it? But I am curious, like, if I wrote a next book, should I work through a publisher or just keep going on my own? Like, I don't know how to think about that because I'm not normally from this world. This is not like, I don't consider it home. I'm visiting Japan, trying to like learn the information I learned before I go back home and open my store, wherever that is. But like, how do you think about that?
So the again, going back to what we talked about earlier, my personal goal is to get the book into as many hands as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for me, giving the book to the publisher makes more sense when that's possible, which is not always the case, because the publisher will have established distribution networks and will get your book into stores. Now, not every publisher can do that. The smaller publishers really will just do the same thing as you can do yourself and get your book up on Amazon and like make it possible for a store to order your book if they so choose.
Yeah.
But most will not. A big publisher like Simon and Schuster, Macmillan, the major publishers, they have an entire network and they have a distribution system where their reps will go into stores and they will get their books reviewed in major publications and get like librarians and bookstores to order it, etc. So your odds of success, well, certainly not guaranteed. Most books never earn out their advance. Like literally, like probably like 80% of the books, if not more, never earn out their advance. Having said that, your odds of success are actually greater with a traditional publisher than they are self-publishing. But I do both. I mean, it depends on the project. It depends on what's the right fit. And sometimes you have a book that's good, but it's such an odd duck that you can't find a publisher that wants to invest money into it. I have a book that's going to be coming out later this year, and it's a space opera comedy. And it's literally a straight up comedy in the vein of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And the publishers do not want to touch anything like that unless it comes from somebody with a huge proven record, like John Scalzi or Cat Palante, or like people who have already proven that they can sell hundreds of thousands of books. But if you are even like one or two steps below that, selling a humor book is much harder than selling a book that doesn't rely on jokes. And so that book I'm going to be putting out myself because I want it done a certain way, want it done exactly right, and that's going to be my next big project this year. It's going to come out this summer.
That's awesome. What's it called?
It's called The Best of All Possible Planets. So this is a space opera inspired by Voltaire's Candide.
Yeah, it's Pangloss, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And all this is a series of Futurama episodes. So I already have artwork for it, the cover art. I'm talking to people about audiobook narration. So all of these elements are coming together, and I'm very, very precise about like what I want the book to look like. For example, it pisses me off that like 100 years ago, almost any fiction book had illustrations, and now almost none do. So I actually want like just regular black and white, like lithograph style illustrations. And it's not that expensive to do that. You can hire wonderful artists at a reasonable price to do that. And so, if this book went to a publisher, chances are they would not splurge on that. Because I'm putting it out myself, it's going to be richly illustrated, for example. So there's other elements to it, how it's designed, how it looks like, that will not make up for it being a bad book necessarily. But if it's already a pretty good book, it just enhances your experience. So I'm always kind of I want a beautiful object, because writing is art, right? So you want an object art to come out when that book actually in the book.
Which magic expansion or set reflects your like sensibilities about writing the best that you're aware of? I know it's a weird question.
Interesting.
What do you think is the most Alex Shvartsman like expansion or block? Or
it's having not spent much time thinking about it, I would probably have to go to Antiquities.
Oh wow!
Because it has so much lore, especially for the early Magic sets. Most of them had lore that was kind of incoherent.
Yeah,
and that the kind of like the idea of the whole Brothers War is where Magic actually started like getting its act together and getting the power of narrative behind their story that just became like a lot more cohesive down the line. But that was really the first example of that. And so to me, that was very attractive, even though the set itself was not necessarily the greatest. But the fact that they started telling a compelling story with characters that you could follow. And I think that was the first set that did that. I don't think the earlier base game or Arabian Nights had anything resembling that. So I have to go with that because again, narrative for me is the most important part of any of it.
It makes a lot more sense why you would work on a lot of different games with all of your different skills. Not that it wouldn't normally, but you're like, yes, you would be very fun to work with on RPGs or card game or so many different types of game, as long as it had like a depth to it. You need a depth, right? This is an interesting thing that hit me at my last job, or in the last decade. Like gaming has changed, or the types of games that are offered are pretty different. And those of us who prefer to make deeper experiences, like you kind of have to like opt out of making shallower ones, or there's a creative gulf there, right? There are a lot of really shallow games that are predatory, that like are on people's phones, that people are spending a lot of time on, that at some point society will probably get tired of. But not yet, without any governing body.
I don't
And
think it
without, and
will. I think
you don't think
cheap
so?
entertainment has always existed and always will. And
Hmm.
sometimes, again, that's what people want. But you're right. We are not the best people to work on the shallow stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, again, like I want to work on games that tell a meaningful story, and they're interesting to play, but also tell a meaningful story. So for the past a little over a year now, I have
Hmm.
a startup, which is a chock full of Magic players and designers, essentially. So it's spearheaded by Brian Weissman of the Deck game. Uh,
Hmm.
our lead programmer is Alan Calmer. And like
It's a really good Magic team. Like,
yeah, we have a ton of like Magic talent on and other various people who work on everything from like BattleTech to Pokemon to other kinds of games. And we are creating a roguelike deck builder called Reclusion. And so roguelike deck builder, for those who don't know, is a game similar to something like Slay the Spire or Dreamscape,
mhm.
except for none of those games actually have a plot, right? Those games, they have very, very shallow sort of like, oh, some random like fantasy elements that are just there for flavor, but no
Cool.
actual plot. We have a game with character development, plot, that is actually deep and consistent. So we are really expanding upon that roguelike elements, and we're doing a lot of things completely differently from what others have done in the past. With a wonderful, wonderful team. Like, I mean, our lead artist is not a video game artist; he's a fine artist who is also a world-renowned
Awesome.
pluralist. So we have our art looks completely different from what you would expect from that kind of game. I'm the narrative director for the company, and again, like I come from the world of books rather than the world of video games. So I'm writing the story the way that I would write a story in a book in many ways. Now, of course, has to be adjusted for and I have written for games before, but I bring a different and unique experience, and so do other members of this team. So we're very, very excited about it. We actually showed off the very early prototype of the game at the Worldcon in Seattle last
Hmm.
summer,
Hmm.
and we have a bunch of information up on the website, including an entire book of stories in the world of this game that you can download, which
Cool.
we worked with authors to put together. And the website is reclusionthegame.com. So if anybody wants to check it out, I think it'll appeal to Magic players for sure, and it'll appeal to Path of Exile players because that's Brian's previous project. So he definitely brings a lot of his PoE experience to this game. So we're working on it, and we're still at least a year out, but we're definitely very, very excited about what we already have so far, and I think it's only going to get better. And just so much fun working with this team and creating this game. And really, the reason I kind of went so deep on it is it speaks very much to what you were saying about creating experiences that are not shallow. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
so much that we can do with this game as opposed to just ripping off like the basic mechanics of Slay the Spire or something like that. So we just kind of take that idea and go so much deeper.
Yeah. I love it. Sounds certainly like a game I would enjoy a lot. I definitely appreciate what you guys are going after. It sounds warm and fuzzy in my heart. It feels that way. It sounds and feels. But that sounds great. I'm glad you're doing that. I think I want to see more products that feel like they're loved and cared for, and like people like intentionally put the pieces into place so that you could experience a certain thing. You see it with like Meow Wolf and other sort of in reality experiences, but in
Mhm.
gaming, it's been kind of weird, right? I think I like what you're doing. I'm interested in a lot of different facets of how to build deep experiences that connect. There are different ways of going about it, but it feels far better to have worked on a Magic the Gathering that's been around for 30 years versus Cityville, which was the biggest game in the world for a year and a half, and it's been dead for 15 years, right? Um, Working on products that last, definitely where to be,
It
in my
is.
opinion.
You never know, right? Like when you start any new project, whether it's a game, a short story, a novel, a movie, you don't know if it's going to be like a huge flop No, even like super best-selling movies with like $100 million budgets, they could flop really big, right? But so you don't know how it's going to be, and I think the idea is that you just make the best possible version of whatever you're trying to create, and you get it out there. And there's a certain luck element. There's a certain, and some things just kind of become cult hits, even if it doesn't succeed right away. It may have, a longer life, somehow afterwards. So I approach it with like, hey, I'm gonna do everything I can to make this fun and interesting and uh, compelling. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then you move on from Cityville to Electric Boogaloo.
I want to watch this. They've tried so many times to make a sequel, and the team that was making the sequel, they hated working at Zynga so much that you could feel it in the tone of the game that came out as they were just like lampooning everything, and it was this dark tinged. It failed almost on arrival. It turns out that the 60-year-old audience that was playing it has no interest in feeling bad at any time, right? So,
Right.
uh,
That's not what the game is about.
no, not no. It is like a Panglossian universe, not a dystopian one.
I
Oh,
mean, there's a lot of philosophical arguments there to be made because I don't think Panglossian universe is very good.
no. Uh, I would agree. Yeah, is there like a character that reflects what good could look like for you? That's a what character embodies you think like like a healthy journey, or a healthy universe that gives you like the opportunity to grow and like take risks and etc.
Oh man, yeah, I'm not prepared for that at all. I
No, I
think that
know it's great. That's
I
why it's
I
a good
think
question.
that inherently writing utopias is just boring.
Hmm.
So while it would be a great place to live in, it doesn't make for a good story. And that's
Yeah,
why even utopias don't stay utopias for very long. I mean, Star Trek started out as a utopia, right? And it became like kind of a hellhole after like a few decades, right? Like, I mean, you wouldn't want to live in the world of Star Trek the way that it's presented in more in more recent iterations of it, because all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, like it's a lot more dystopian than we
yeah,
thought, essentially, right?
yeah.
This tends to happen with any utopian settings because utopia again, writing in the utopia is just living in utopia is fantastic. Writing in the utopia is boring.
Yeah, I wonder a little bit if Time Spiral would have done better now. When I was working on Time Spiral, it was like, hey, all of your friends are back, but like their clothes are shredded and they're emaciated and sad. But like dystopias are in. We had in my last company, we had like one of the execs was always like, let's make a dystopia like this. Let's make a dystopia like that, like the Hunger Games, but times 1,000. Um, that fiction did not connect at all. I don't think in that time. It was just you don't want your friends back sad, or do you now? I don't know.
Well,
What has
I
happened to the universe? Yeah.
I think up to a certain point, it used to be the truism that when things were really bad out there, people sought comforting stories in settings. And when things were comfortable, that's when people kind of like wanted their senses tickled. So they wanted more like dystopia, horror, things like that. But I don't think that formula survived our current reality. I think
No.
right now, like as dark as things are, people are seeking dystopias, perhaps because they're better than the real life. So that's or at least some aspects of them are. So like I mean, horror is incredibly popular right now. But then again, so is romantasy, which is as close to utopian as it gets.
Yeah. I romantasy. I've worked. This is something that like no one, most people wouldn't know who are listening. But I've worked in like interactive storytelling, like at like where romantasy has been big for a long time, and I find it pretty enjoyable. I don't have any qualms with it. It's just like storytelling is like often stories are often enjoyable. The reason people read them is not. It's like food. People eat food that tastes good a lot of the time, no matter what the culture is. There's like even like playing music. If I'm playing music and I'm like, all right, I have to play a country song. I'm like, it's just awesome. It's just always fun, right? So there's some element of like just being a human and doing these silly things just feels great.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like it's just we get a limited time on Earth, and
Oh yeah.
so you want to just experience and do things that are fun and that are hopefully are going to leave something behind you, so that these books and these like anything that we're creating, that games, uh, we don't know if anybody's going to play Farmville or Magic or any popular game today, like 20 years from now, but they might. Or even if they don't, they might play something that was inspired by it because they grew up playing. Like the people who created the next thing grew up playing that. So I think that we make a lasting impression that way.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. You triggered a question, but I don't know if it's fair. I keep wanting to throw unfair questions at you, but I was like, okay, Alex Schwartzman, you get to design your own magic block and you can make the fiction and mechanics however you want. Like, have you ever thought about like what the director's cut take of like a universe would be for you that doesn't harken to what you're doing now or anything you've done proprietarily, but like, what is the Alex Schwartzman magic block? What would that be? Is that too hard? That's a crazy question. I
It's
couldn't
it's
answer.
it's a bit of a crazy question, but I mean, first of all, Edge of Eternities already exists, so that would
Yeah,
have
yeah.
been easy. Like, because for me, space opera has always been like my favorite subgenre.
Hmm.
So something like Spelljammer would have been like really up my alley to do, and they went way further than Spelljammer, way further than I expected them to go with Edge of Eternity. So that certainly would probably be in my comfort zone. But failing that, I think that going back to something like the arena, which is basically just like magic combat that like that kind of gamifies like almost lit RPG the magic.
Hmm.
That's probably something. If tomorrow, like I got the phone call and they asked me to like, produce something like that, that's probably the direction that I would take. Like I would
Yeah, I
do
was wondering
a
about
lit
that.
RPG where like you're actually leveling up and learning like how to like cast the spells and do all of that stuff that that we actually do as magic players, but through the characters of the story.
I feel like all of my hard questions you have great answers to. It's frustrating. No,
I'm sorry, I'll do better.
trying to stump you. No, it's fine. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's great to see you. I feel like it's the same as it always was. You're still Alex, and I'm still Brian.
That doesn't change. I mean, like growing up is for suckers, right? Like we're still we look we have a lot less hair and it's a lot grayer, but we really still are the same people, and I feel like that entire community. I mean, it's been such an honor and pleasure to be a part of that. Even though I was only really a part of Magic for a certain number of years, maybe like 5 to 7 years.
Hmm.
That was deeply involved. Much less so since then, unless you count running a game store. But it really shaped me in many ways and shaped my approach to kind of like sort of like a more measured strategic approach to like business decisions to kind of like figuring out kind of like the step by step like of how to look at the universe. And I think Magic is partly responsible for that. Oh, Albert has a question. He's like, any advice on opening a shop? The best advice we can give you is don't.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Really, really, really tough business. So I'm sure you've heard, and most people have heard, how like restaurants have an insanely high failure rate of like something like 90 something percent of restaurants fail in the first 2 years.
Hmm.
The failure rate of game stores is actually higher than that. So it's really you have to be super passionate and also kind of like he's quixotic in certain ways to uh to do that. Although like a game and restaurant combo could work better, I feel like you can at least like like you get all
Mitigate
the
risk.
consumers and at least like feed them some pizza or something. I think pizza parlors are more likely to survive than most restaurants. But yeah, I mean, opening a game store, it sounds like a lot of fun, but I gotta tell you, most people who run them spend less time playing games than we did. And that certainly is true for me. But I spend way less time playing games ever since I opened the store than I did before then. And as years went by, less and less because your time is just taken up doing all the boring stuff. like running the actual business and like, dealing with all sorts of nonsense. So it's sometimes it's good to keep the hobby separate from the day job because it allows you to
And I
like,
found that too.
because writing is essentially my hobby. It allows me this creative freedom of saying no to projects, of saying like I'm not going to just take something on because if I don't, I'll be eating ramen all month, right? And so I can say no to potentially. Like, I was actually asked to write Romantasy at one point, and I was just like, "You like met me? I'm not good at this." And I said no. I'd passed on that. Could have made money. Could have like had like a book published by a major publisher. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go and I'm going to write something that I care about. And so opening a game store is kind of like that, where if you do that, all of a sudden your passion becomes your day job, and that's not always a positive.
Look at my face. Yeah, it's interesting. I was interested in where you would, if you were 30 years younger now, how would you think about trying to find the right community for you, a healthy community for you to develop in, right? That's not how we thought then. We had no idea. We're just having fun. But like with hindsight, thinking of today, like, is there a community that you think, oh, this is where I would grow well now? Like like it's a different time, right? Does that exist anymore? What is
Oh,
that to you?
yeah, it's. I don't regret my choices. I feel like
Mhm.
I've been a part of a number of different fandoms, and they were all fabulous. And I still have friends from all of them that I've had for 30 plus years. But given a choice, if I could go back, I would have definitely joined the science fiction and fantasy fandom a lot sooner because there is an existing like convention circuit and people who like run all these like fanzines and meet up and do all that stuff because it's such a friendly, casual, welcoming community. And I mean, Magic is great too, but Magic is a lot more competitive. So there's that element to it.
Yeah.
Here, you're not really competing with anybody. You're just sharing the love of something that you greatly enjoy. And the very first time, and I was, in my 30s, like in almost my mid 30s, when I went to my first like straight up science fiction convention, which was not like a gaming convention or anything like that. And I just felt at home, like immediately. I was like, these are my people. So if I could, I would have definitely started that sooner.
Yeah, I heard writers are greater than gamers and the simplification of that, but I'm not criticizing that. We're probably our Venn diagram overlap other than like the universe taste is probably extremely hot, right? Who is your favorite sci-fi author? Alex
So
Schwartzman.
there isn't just one. I find it very hard to answer the like, oh, what's your favorite book? What's your favorite movies? Like those kind of questions are really hard to answer because there's so much great stuff out there that there's not, you can't like limit it to one. Some of my favorites are Mikhail Bulgakov, who wrote The Master and Margarita, which is
Yeah,
certainly
it's
my
awesome.
favorite Russian language book.
It's
Uh,
on the shelf. On the
nice.
shelf right over there. So,
And there isn't, unfortunately, I have to disappoint you, Brian. There isn't a good English translation. So all
it's
the
fun.
translations I've tried were lacking in some ways. So unfortunately, it's kind of like reading Shakespeare in other languages, basically. Besides that, there's so much. Mike Resnick is certainly one of my favorites. For over the years, Simon R. Green. Like a lot of these people are people that I, just have been reading growing up. Robert Shackley, Harry Harrison, and there's many new favorites as well. There's people that I've been reading more recently, but I think they're just tremendous writers for it who I enjoy greatly. Like Adrian Tchaikovsky is a good example of that. His books are just fantastic, and I got to work with him, which is really nice. Matt Dinneman, who kind of like skyrocketed onto the
Yeah.
into the public arena recently. His books are just great fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend the next hour throwing names out there, but it really depends on. I'm much better at giving recommendations. So if you tell me like, hey, I like reading these three authors, I will
I'll,
probably give you like another like several that
I'll throw you a question. So I went to see Ann Patchett once,
Mhm.
do a lecture and one of those talking series. And she owns a game. She owns a bookstore. She's suffers that affliction like you have a game store. And she's like, these are the books that I see people wanting to buy, and they're bad books, and I tell them not to. And then these are the books that I recommend that are actually great. So that's where I got Where'd You Go, Bernadette, which is a wonderful book. I love that book. And that comes from Ann Patchett. Like, what are your like, don't do this, but definitely do this books? Is that
Well,
good framing? Yeah.
I don't like this prescriptive element of who are like don't read these guys, right? I mean, Dan
Yeah.
Brown
Yeah.
is legit on a line by line level is a terrible writer. Okay, but he's an enormously talented plotter. He knows how to keep his audience entertained. He knows how to keep them turning pages,
Uh-huh.
and he's very, very good at like storytelling, but not at writing.
Yeah.
Does that mean that people shouldn't read him? Absolutely not. Like, if you enjoy his books,
Well,
go
her
ahead.
argument was like The Beautiful and Damned. If you're going to read an F. Scott Fitzgerald book, that book is an F. Like, I actually like that book. But I thought her argument is that's an F. You are
Uh,
wasting your like time on earth if that's the book you're reading. So it's like, but again, you're like just deferring to her taste versus someone else's.
yeah, I
Um,
disagree vehemently with that. I think
Good. No, it's
we
good.
all have our tastes, and I can recommend to you like the books that I love, and just different like authors that can tell like that can tell like a particular type of story. And that's like but you may not like what I like. You may have a completely different like there are Hugo winning books that I thought were terrible, but it doesn't mean that they're actually terrible. It just means that they were not for me. And then there are books that I absolutely adore that may not have, like one of my favorite science fiction books of all time is Birthright by Mike Resnick. And not only is it not particularly famous, it's not even like in the top 10 best known books by Mike Resnick. Okay, right? But I think it's one of the best like science fiction novels ever written. In the way in scope, in the way that it's done. Like, I mean, it's just absolutely fabulous. And yeah, I mean, Albert has a question. So Ender's Game is also one of my favorite books, and
It's a great book. Yeah.
I don't think that you have to agree with the author's politics or outlook on life to enjoy their work. I reject the idea that you need to like cancel authors because you disagree with their politics, or you have to like judge what's written in the book. And if you look at the actual books, he is pretty good at like the analysis of like how people are, and like and not at all hateful and not at all and so I think that that's an author's personality comes through their work in many ways, because you can't fake that, and that's, and by the way, like, just so you know, when people say like, I will only buy the book used or anything like that, when an author sells when a bookstore sells a copy of the book, the amount of money that the author makes is so tiny
It's small anyway. Yeah.
compared to the price. You'll be very lucky to get 10%. I mean, that's before your agent takes the cut, before like various other expenses. So if you were to buy like a $20 copy of Ender's Game, at best, Scott would see like buck 50. So you're not really making a big statement by saying, I'm only going to buy the used, because honestly, you're supporting the publisher more than you're supporting the author when you buy a brand new book. And the publisher of his books, I believe, is Macmillan, is Tor, who also publishes people like John Scalzi and Brandon Sanderson, and like all sorts of authors whom you probably agree with more than you may agree with Scott. So that's so like just enjoy your books. Don't feel guilty about like what you read. You're not hurting anybody. Just read what you want to read and don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah, it's funny, like thinking back. Mark Rosewater at Wizards was the person who was the most. He wouldn't shop at Miss Fields because of like the value. He wouldn't go to Chick-fil-A, and
Mhm.
like he was the first person I encountered as an adult that was like thinking in terms of like voting with his
with
money, and
cars.
I give him a lot of props for that. That was a really interesting like way for him to see the world. Um, it's I didn't write about it in the book, but it is one of those weird learning lesson things where you're like, oh, early in your career with all these smart people, you learn these different perspectives on how to live and how to be. But in your case, eat the Chick-fil-A. No, no, no. I'm not saying that. Although I am hungry now that you mention it. You still like where you're at? You've been in the New York area forever, man.
I
Are you New
do.
Yorker?
I love South Brooklyn. And in fact, I write books about Brooklyn. Like this is
Yeah.
my I have an urban fantasy series that takes place here in New York, and I kind of it came from the place of like, what if I was to do what Simon R. Green has done for London, and
Uh-huh.
basically, or more recently, Ben Aronovich, and write these books where New York City and Brooklyn in particular is almost like a character. And so I wrote the Conrad Burst books, which is these right here.
Nice.
And there's two of them so far, but there's going to be a third one that caps off the story. And that's I use real places and real like sort of urban mythology of New York City to structure my plots, which makes it really interesting for me because this is I live here, and so people who you don't absolutely don't have to know anything about New York City to enjoy those books, but it's an extra level of layer of Easter eggs if if you're able to recognize some of these places. And by the way, I did put King's Games as a location in the book. Even set up the big
I,
fight
I,
there in book two.
I endorse this. You're reminding me. I was having a chat with Patrick Chapin last week. It was a really fun chat, and it was interesting because you're talking about writing about a place where you have to have added definition. I found that writing alternate worlds, I could like reference my historical brain like very well and very fast. But if I have to do research, it's a very different type of brain activity, and it feels slower and more. I'm kind of curious how it feels to you to write a like in a how much research do you do? Like how much like plotting do you do and how much does it slow you down or not? Like what cognitive load comes with like writing about Brooklyn that doesn't come from writing about 30 years ago?
Well, for one thing, I've lived here now for, the majority
Yeah.
of my life at this point. So I'm writing what I know. I don't need to do additional research. Like I may research specific like locations and their history and things like that. Like because there's a lot of, I mean, there are colonies that were here hundreds of years ago, basically. Uh, Dutch colonies and everything that were part of Brooklyn long before it was considered part of New York City.
Mhm.
So yes, you do a little bit of research on those, but it's a fairly minimal amount of research compared to people who write, say, historical fantasy. Like historical fantasy is tough because it's so easy, unless you're an actual historian, trained historian, it is so easy to introduce anachronisms into your story. If you watch like any TV show about ancient Rome, there are like a historian can like point out like a mistaken minute at like the things that were not really like that like in those shows. And so much of the fake history becomes part of the zeitgeist that you kind of it's hard to separate the reality from the fiction. Did you know that Spartacus was not crucified? Did you know that
Really?
nobody even considered that until the Spartacus movie from the 1960s? That was the first movie that actually, because they wanted so badly to introduce the Jesus imagery into it, that's why they had him crucified at the end. And now, if you ask a random person on the street how Spartacus died, like anybody who is educated enough to even know who Spartacus was is going to tell you he was crucified. So fiction very much informs our reality, and those anachronisms, those like wrong elements are so pervasive, right?
Mhm.
So I try to write the genres that don't require me to do a tremendous amount of research, or at least the research that I have to do is kind of like manageable in scope. And even so, I have bloopers in my works. Like I'm not a drinker, but I had a
Mhm.
character who is like a real connoisseur of wine in my most recent novel. And I did a bunch of research about it and talked to people. And then, I was proud of myself because I thought I presented like all that information correctly and did everything well. And there was like a blooper that I managed to put in there that somebody who actually knows their line read it and was like, nope. And that was after the book was published already. It got past the editor, it got past the proofreaders, got past everybody, because unless you are a connoisseur, you're not going to know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to mention specifically what it is, because then the readers can read the book and see if they can figure it out for themselves.
Yeah.
But I know that there's definitely a mistake in there. So I have to live with that. And I try my best not to make those mistakes, but I also realize that it's fiction, and fiction isn't perfect. And sometimes, sometimes you're going to screw things up, or write something write that inelegant sentence that when you're rereading the book 10 years later, you're like, shucks, like I wish I could have fixed that.
Yeah. That definitely resonates. It's interesting. How many books do you have out there? Like,
So I have
yeah.
a novella, two short story collections, and three novels out. Actually, sorry, three short story collections. I forgot that one came out last year. So those are the books that I actually wrote, in addition to, I've
The
edited
anthology.
almost 20 anthologies at this point. So if you look behind me, uh,
Hmm.
all these books are books that I either wrote or have my short stories in. Like that, those are all brag shells. Because you can have the same story that appeared in like 10 different anthologies, and some of them will be in different languages as well. So you can build, once you start getting stuff published, you can actually get that brag shelf to grow pretty quickly.
What's your, you mentioned translation, as like another business that got you, it's a bridge to getting into writing. Like, tell me, are you still doing translations now? Like, is that,
I am, but it actually happened the other way around. I got into writing
oh, okay.
first, and I was already reasonably successful writer when I tried my hand at translation. And the reason I did that is I just really enjoyed a short story, and I wanted my Anglophone friends to be able to share it with me. And so I asked the author permission, and I translated it, and people loved it. And they're like, more, please. And I realized
Hilarious.
I actually had a lot of fun translating. So my Russian is about as good as my English, though it's not as active for me. So like I can understand everything, but I would not be as eloquent speaking it at this point, because I'm a little out of practice. So, but being able to read the material in Russian and then write it in English, I can do it at the speed of typing, basically, unless I come across something really, really complex and then just can't figure out how to like relay a certain concept or whatever. That may take me longer. But generally, I translate very quickly. And so I started out by translating short stories, and those short stories have appeared in pretty much every major like successful like science fiction and fantasy magazine out there, in year's best volumes, all sorts of places like that. And then uh, I kind of, I wasn't even looking for that work, but people started reaching out to me and asking me to translate their scripts. Studios started hiring me, so I've translated scripts for for movie studios, for directors, for producers. I've translated novels. I've translated video game content, and that's actually work that pays really well. It's work that's, at least for now, AI proof, because
Yeah.
AI is really great at translating like manuals, like technical manuals, but
Hmm.
anything that involves subtext and involves like wordplay, or anything sophisticated or complex like that, it just fails, completely
Yeah.
fails. So if you want high quality translation, you still need an expert. And I really got involved in that and kind of became a part of that community as well, where people will sort of debate different techniques and like, kind of figure out how to translate certain things. And it also allowed me to make a lot of friends in the science fiction and fantasy communities in Ukraine and Russia, because, like I've translated quite a number of the popular and successful authors, and just even authors who may not be as popular, but just they had stuff that they wrote that I thought was just really good and was worth translating. So it's a kind of a service that I do for that community, while also, uh, you know, enjoying the work that I'm doing, and getting those stories published. And in fact, Fairwood Press put out an entire book of stories that I translated by a fabulous author from Russia named Katerina. And this is the book. This only came out a few months ago. So this
Oh,
amount,
man.
so like there was enough stories. Every one of these stories was originally published in different magazines and anthologies. So I didn't actually
Wow.
translate anything new for this book. It just I was able to put together enough translations and interest the publisher in putting all of that together.
The book is Black Hole Heart for those who are listening and not seeing,
Ah,
which is the first. This is the first time I've paid attention to that. I'm like, wait a minute. If like some people just listen. You and I were talking before we started. Like, I can't really stand video content. Like, I don't seek it out. I don't want TikTok. But obviously, the world is different for me. You and I are both like, hey, words are pretty great. Um, I do wonder like how things will change over the next decades with like more people probably getting into video than text. Yeah, I have no idea which way the world will shift. The world will shift. There's not, as far as I know, there's one,
well,
despite the name.
I think that we are absolutely seeing the way in which the people's attention span is shifting. And social media has played such a key role in that because it's really trained us to consume content in bite-sized form.
Mhm.
So because of that, I feel like shorter works, and we've already been seeing that because like kind of Japan in many ways is ahead of us by about a decade, right? And so we've already seen like these like sort of like very short novels in Japan that are written in like
Yeah.
almost like written on a cell phone type deal.
Very short form TV, right? Like,
Yeah, so we're going
yeah.
to see more of that across media. We're going to see shorter games. We're going to see shorter chapters in actual novels. We're going to see shorter novels. I mean, because like I don't know how many people realize, but a typical novel, 50 to 100 years ago, used to be like 40, 50,000 words, right? I mean, like most of the books that were being published, even what we consider novel, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is 45,000 words. So just for to give you an example, the book I was just holding is about 100,000 words.
Mhm.
So it's like less than half of that. And we've kind of went from that to expecting a typical novel to be over 100,000 words. I mean, you want door stoppers, especially if it's epic fantasy, right? Like, Tolkien and then others have taught us that like novels are supposed to be thick. And I think that we're going to see the shortening of the novel again. The novella as a medium is becoming more popular again. Novellas are roughly between 20 and 40,000 words, so they're like
Mhm.
short, like compared to novels. So that's kind of experiencing a resurgence right now. Uh, Short stories. There's something called flash fiction, which is stories under 1,000 words, something you can read while drinking a cup of coffee. Those are becoming increasingly more popular and have been for the past decade. So yeah, I mean, I think that all this bite-sized fiction thing is definitely reverberating across like all these different formats, even the ones that are not inherently designed for very short format.
Yeah, it rewards a certain level of serial. We thought about this a lot at the last company I was at was focused on how storytelling will work moving forward. And so when you think about like positioning a universe, you can have it be like South Park, where you can have different stories with the same characters and not have to worry about continuity as much. Or you can have something more like SNL, where it's skit based. You have your characterization, or extreme soap opera, where it almost is like linear. We're talking about interactive, so there's like branching, but you need to keep it very um, memory light, to make these stories connect and stay sane for whoever's reading them, right? And so, but you'll see more of that for sure. I don't mind those things. I quite like SNL and South Park and etc. and The Simpsons, but uh, certain story formats will not play well in that paradigm. That it'll be very interesting to see the like Earth's crust with different story types in volume, in 10 or 15 years.
Well, I don't think any of this is going to go away. Like the thick novel is not going away, right? Like I mean,
Yeah.
there's people still want the next Game of Thrones book, right? Which is going to be like
Mhm.
a doorstopper.
That's not a
Uh,
real thing.
Brandon
That's not a real
Sanderson is
thing.
one of the most successful fantasy writers of all time, and all of his books are like basically lethal weapons. You can just drop one from the second floor on somebody if you want to. If
Do
you
you
want
think
to
he
explode
designed
them.
it that way on purpose? No.
Oh yeah, I mean, like he just writes. Like it's not like he sets out to write long. It's his style, and he does it so effortlessly. I mean, he can just sit there and just produce pages upon pages of material. Agent Tchaikovsky is the same way. In fact, like his novels are shorter, but he's putting out like three or four of them per year, which is really impressive to me. Like I'm lucky to write a novel per year because like yes, I'm doing other work, but still, even if I was doing absolutely nothing else, I'd probably have a hard time putting out more than one novel per year because I'm not a very fast writer. And so yeah, those things are not going away. And the same thing, like not everything is going to become The Simpsons, right? Like you're gonna have
Yep.
stories that very much rely on continuity and structure and like rigorous sort of like world building, right?
I
Uh,
do think that you'll see like the younger set gravitating towards this newer form content, right? Like I agree with you, and it's more for me about the pie chart or the distribution of like where attention will go over time. But all things, yeah, I agree. I agree with both of us actually.
yeah, I mean, I think that there's just so many different people that want different things, and because of how like, it's not about being able to access media; it's about being able to like stand out in the torrent of media that exists. There are more books being published every day than you can read in a lifetime. Every
Yeah.
day, not every month, every day. And so the problem becomes not that like, hey, there's too many books out there. The problem is how do I convince people that they should be reading my book? Right? And that's where social media comes into play. That's where attending conventions comes into play, reaching to different communities. Like I can speak to the magic community, and at least the parts of it that still remember me, and be like, "Hey, remember this guy? I wrote a book." Same with you, Brian. Right? Like I mean, you
Yeah.
wrote a book about your time at the magic community, and that will appeal to that group of people.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to become a lot more about either being performative and being able to stand out because like your social media accounts are particularly interesting or something, or about finding inroads and saying, "Hey, I'm one of you." Like if you're a real estate agent and you're writing murder mysteries, you might write one that takes place at like a real estate convention, and you will then be able to not only sell it to to book readers, but you'll be able to sell it to other real estate agents because they'll see themselves in that book, hopefully not murder. So that's so
It's a good addition. It's a good addition.
I
Yeah.
think that's going to be the wave of the future is that you're going to just sort of tailor a lot of the content to the demographic. So same thing as we have with streaming media right now, right? And there's so many TV shows and so many like different material out there on all of these platforms that you can create a show that's very niche, but because it appeals to that particular demographic, there's going to be enough of them that will kind of band together online and be like, we're all watching this. So,
I agree. I strongly agree with what you're saying this time.
and that's a
Like,
good thing because it allows us
yeah,
to create what we want to create. If I want to create a trivia game, even though like relatively few people compared to, let's say, Magic might want to play a trivia game, I can find those people because I know where they are. They're on the internet and they can Google a trivia game and find my game.
yeah. It's certainly like trivia was one of the biggest genres. It feels like before the internet, like before Google, right? You don't
It was never a very like I think there are of course exceptions to prove the rule.
like Trivial Pursuit and
Trivial
You
Pursuit.
Don't Know Jack and
Uh,
yeah,
for the most part, trivia games aren't particularly successful, like compared to like lots and lots of other games in the genre. Like Smarty Party is probably the best trivia game of all time that was ever like produced as a board game.
right,
And like Smarty Party will have never outsold Carcassonne or Settlers
yeah,
or any like successful board game, right?
yeah.
So it's a niche thing, but that's what I'm saying is that if this is what you want to play or this is what you want to create, we live in an environment where you can create niche things and then go and look for like-minded people who are going to enjoy them.
I kind of feel compelled to mention a trivia game. I would call it a trivia game designed by a former professional Magic player. Did
Dominic
you play?
Robitaille,
Yeah, have you played Wits and Waiters much? That game, I love that game. I haven't seen Dom in 25 years or 30 years, but like
he's
that was
probably
a
back
really
on a trim boat.
yeah. He's always was like a merchant marine, I think they called it back then, and so 3 months of the year he was like on a boat.
Yeah, yeah, probably still in the boat. Like, and at least I hope he is. I hope he's having the greatest time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a good game. He's done some interesting things. I mean, she was. But yeah, he completely got. I'm actually the one who bought his Magic collection. He got out of the when he got
Oh,
out.
really?
In fact, he had his Pro Tour trophy there, and I'm like, "Don't you
Oh,
want this?" He's like, "Nah." So
that's
like,
Dom. That's Dom.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I still have it, but like at one point I had his Pro Tour trophy.
I want you to have another office where you just have like obscure trophies that you've acquired over time. You have Dom's trophy, and hold on, I've got mine just sitting over here. I have my brother's trophy, just kind of just hanging out here. Junior world champion, 1996. It's like really weird, fun, obscure stuff.
I have my Grand Prix trophies all over the house. And when
Oh,
my
there
kid
you are.
was young, he would look at these trophies and he would just be like, "Dad, did you play soccer?" Because like that's what he's associated the
Yes, the
trophy.
answer is yes, as long
And
as
I'm
you
like,
think that's a good thing.
I would definitely beat Maradona at Magic.
There's no question. I
Yeah,
don't. Oh, there's nothing further to say there. Did your son ever drink out of these trophies? Like, I just see like drinking milk or apple juice or something.
no, but I
Uh,
do have the ones that you could drink out of too, because like
yeah.
the South American Grand Prix, they were like those trophies look. I mean, like I had trouble getting them through airports. I mean, they were like this big.
How many continents did you play on? Like,
All of
that's
them,
the thing.
except
You put
Antarctica. Except
Antarctica.
Antarctica. Like somebody needed to like do a tournament on that base. At one
I think
point,
it's
like,
Albert Burkhead. Like Albert Burkhead's always thinking in a weird outside the box entrepreneurial bet. Get Alex Schwartzman to Antarctica and set up a Grand Prix there sounds like a challenge.
I did a count at one point, and I figured that I've played Magic in over 30 countries, and certainly on
Mhm.
every habitable continent. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, South Africa in particular was such a great experience. And I'm still pissed at all my fellow like Magic players that went to that. This was a Magic Invitational and a Grand Prix. And out of all the Magic people that were there, I could not convince one living soul to join me on a 3 week photo safari. It would have
Oh.
been dirt cheap. I mean, once in a lifetime experience, right? Because you're already in South Africa. It's like it would take a plane like up.
Do you want to call them out by name? This is like your Passover moment where instead of like drops of wine, you're like the 15 people or 16 people who have no soul.
Well, this is not a Passover moment. This is the airing of grievances, my friend.
Oh yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah,
But no,
like
no, it's not
which
about the.
16 people should not have been invited to any tournament and never should be allowed to go again because they wouldn't appreciate it sufficiently.
It's not about the individuals. It's just the fact that
There
like
you are.
it was tough to, like I regret not going, but at the same time, I really did not want to go on like this 3 week adventure on my own.
Yeah.
That felt like weird. So I probably will never get to do that safari at this point.
What if some of those people were willing to do it now? Would you go?
Oh man, I can't see myself getting away for 3 weeks like, at this point. This is a time in our lives where we could do that sort of thing, where we could just
Oh
disappear
yeah.
for 3 weeks and nobody would have cared. Like nobody would, like no responsibilities. Like I don't know, maybe like when we're retired. Like I think we need to make a pact right now that like at a certain point, if we live like to be 70 or something, we need to go on a 3 week safari.
I'd say, all right. I'd say in 10 to 12 years, I could commit to that if I'm invited. I wasn't at this invitation, but I'm like, all right, 60. Yeah, all right. That
And
works.
just like, assuming that, there's still like safaris and like animals to photograph over there at that point.
And humans.
Well, yeah, that too. I mean, that's a minor point there. We might be in the enclosures, like the AIs will be on the safari, and like we're gonna be like, look at those people, haha.
We're still a part of the simulation at that point, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're not gonna be lucky enough where they're actually gonna plug you in so you could think you live in 1999 or something, which is a pretty good year. If you think about it, like if you
That's
look
a
back
great
at the
year.
Matrix right now, and they're like that's the height of human civilization, and you're like, well, yeah, it kind of was.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk with Brandon Bozzi. You know Brandon? I don't. Yeah, he was creative coordinator for Magic the Gathering for a long time. You know that guy?
I think that was past my time, unfortunately.
No, I mean maybe,
I think so.
but yeah, he is working on how to bring kind of analog experiences back and like tap into like a different mode of being. And so I think it'll be a very interesting chat to see how he's making that happen. But bringing 1999 back, basically. Um,
Disconnecting, from the internet and all that.
yeah, very much so. They've been running events where you can't have your phone. They lock it away, and then it's like all about live theater and interacting together and playing out this experience over the course of a weekend. And like it's gotten really positive response. And it just sounds like it does sound better than checking my phone 4,000 times a day.
Well, but the thing is that you don't even realize you're doing it. I mean, we have this Pavlovian response at this point where you need to check, like anytime you think about your phone, you're getting the itch. You need to check it. You need to like, oh, did I get any messages? Did I get any notifications? I mean, it's just it trains you. So that's the
Yeah.
hard part. Is it's basically addiction.
I think the hard part for me is that my kids see it. And so on Saturday, I'm at piano with my girls, and I'm like, I'm not gonna use my phone today. And they tracked me all day, and they really appreciated it, right? But like that kind of thing is hard to make happen every day, and you wish it wasn't for sure. But they remember. They remember the time you don't spend with them. When they get their phones, they will return favor, I'm sure. But uh, yeah, the humans are wonderful too.
Well,
Much like you are wonderful, and I love your adventuresome spirit. I'll see you on safari in 10 to 12 years.
yeah, it's a date. We got to, or it's a pact rather.
Yeah, it's a pact. Yeah, you can't do a blood pact from afar. Also that's not necessary. We can just agree, take a handshake.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is no, there's no need to draw blood. I mean, like
Yeah,
it's like we're at the age where that happens regularly anyway, where they need to like do our test, like testing and stuff, right? Like,
yeah, and you get information, that valuable information from it. Why would you
yeah,
do it for any other purpose? Yeah.
exactly.
Well, cool. It's always great to see you. I will be at MagicCon for a day with my two generations. My dad, I'm going to take, and my daughter. And I have no idea what'll happen, but I'll be there. You're going to conventions soon, right?
But that
You have
should be
your
a
own.
lot of fun. Please say hi to your dad for me because
Yeah, I
he's
will.
somebody that I've met at these conventions as well, and it's always was a pleasure to speak with him. Yeah, I do a lot more conventions that are like gaming related. So my next
Mhm.
is going to be Boston, which is a science fiction convention in Boston, unsurprisingly based on the name. But I will also be at Dragon Con this year and at the Science Fiction World Con in Los Angeles. So those are the biggies, and we will probably have a booth there for Card Advantage Games to present Conclusion at Worldcon. So yeah, so it's going to be both a gaming con and a writing con for me. And of course, I'm online, and all my books and my game stuff, all of it is available at alexschwartzman.com, which is just my name with the advantage of having an uncommon spelling for one's name is that the URL is usually available.
Yeah, you have a great URL. I was admiring it from afar. There's so much competition, even in my own life. I've worked with Brian Schneider. I went to university with Brian Schneider. You are you get to own yourself. I'm not really ownable.
It's only because the spelling of Schwartzman for me is not the typical American spelling. Because when we were leaving the Soviet Union, those people would just transliterate it from Russian. And so it just however it was spelled in Russian, that's what they did. But the advantage to that is, again, like there's only a small handful of Alex Schwartzmans around the United States. And there's one of them that actually writes books. But thankfully, he writes like engineering and programming manuals. So we don't exactly, compete.
Yeah, I see the storyline of sliding doors, but yeah. Uh, yeah, that doesn't sound, I can't imagine that coming from you anytime soon. But if you do want to write a book about computers or technology or anything, I won't read it.
I don't blame you.
I will,
Although I did a book on AI already. So
oh, really? What is this book?
it's called The Digital Estate. and it's an anthology of science fiction stories on the interaction of AI and art. And
Okay.
so I got some wonderful writers, including Adrian Tchaikovsky, who I mentioned earlier, including Ken Liu, who is one of my favorite writers and humans, and Jane Aspenson, who was one of the original writers in Firefly and who's currently writing Fallout.
Wow.
So a lot of very good writers, combined with authors from all over the globe as well. I mean, there's writers from South America, China, Japan, Russia, Ukraine, etc. So we that book is has actually done quite well. It's coming out in Chinese like any months now. I mean, the process always takes forever. It's been it's come out in audio, it's come out in all sorts of different formats. One of the stories in this book, which I translated, is the very first Ukrainian story to be nominated for a major science fiction award. So yeah, that project kind of keeps on giving. And I wrote the introduction to it, which explains like whole like what generative AI is and like how it interacts with things and why creatives don't like it. And that introduction has been taught in multiple university courses. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's I've had people reach out to me and like let me know that they're like having their students read this. So it was a pretty felt pretty good for somebody who dropped out of college.
Yeah, that one seems up my alley. I have listened to 40% of 2041, which has been pretty good. But I think I would quite like this book too. What's the title again?
It's called The Digital Estate. I can send you the ebook when we get off this call if you.
Done. Sold.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's mine. I'm not like I'm not breaking any publisher's rules. Like, it's my book. I can just send it to you.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's like a startup a lot of ways, like making your own books and just like, I found it to be different. It's interesting. You probably do your book publishing more professionally than I did this one, but it was like, all right, I'm going to put it out on Amazon without much thinking, and my friends will read it, and then they'll tell me what's wrong, and then I'll make it better, and then people I don't know will read it, and it just felt like a software project instead of feeling like, um, uh, you know, production house project. And I think there are different flavors for how you can go about it depending on your community and what they want.
Yeah, with this book, it was just a very different experience from most of them because I got a technology company to sponsor the sponsor it, where like I didn't have to outlay any cash. Then I sold the print rights to one company. I sold the audio rights to another company, and I kept the ebook rights, which is basically the most profitable thing you can keep right now.
Yeah.
So, you almost never can keep the ebook rights and sell print rights. It doesn't work that way anymore in publishing. So this was like a really, really, successful endeavor for me. And uh, the reason it worked out that way is I started working on it almost right away when Midjourney first came out. This is before ChatGPT even hit. When Midjourney came out, and I saw the visceral reaction to it from all the creators that were being stolen from.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is something that we need to, to address, and I started working on it right away. And so by the time the book came out, it was right like at the height of people's like interest in generative AI and what's going on with it. And so like I've been on television talking about it. I've been on radio talking about it. So, I've like lectured, so it's really kind of paid off in a variety of ways, but it was the foresight of like sort of like this is the next thing. I need to I need to create something based on this. And of
Yeah,
course,
I had
the book is written by humans and not generated.
they all sounded human to me, those names. No, yeah, it's one thing I find now is I have like 20 ideas for what I might want to do next. And you reach a certain point when you're 80% done a project, you're like, all you can think about is that next thing, right? And how do you decide there's so many good ideas for fun things to go do? Like, how do you filter to the ones you actually do? Like, walk me through that.
They're
How
the
does it?
ones.
Yeah.
They're the ones that stay in your mind because like I also like I get kind of swept up with good ideas, and I don't start working on it right away. I let it kind of percolate, and if I'm still super excited about it, like a week later, then I'll probably actually start working on it because, and they they win. I mean, because like sometimes you do a bunch of preliminary work and you cool off, like the temperature kind of cool, and you're like, maybe not. But really, the ones that grip you sufficiently, they stay with you. Like you want to get it out to people, and that's a powerful motivator when you're 80% done, like you're saying, like you're thinking about the next project, and I do too. But I'm also thinking of like, hey, I'm so close to actually getting this to the finish line so that I can finally share it with people. Like to me, the most exciting thing about this upcoming, comedy novel is I can't wait until it's out in the public and I can get people's reactions and like the jokes that they like from it and like or hate, like whatever the case may be. But like the fact that they will have read it, it's a great motivator to go do the next thing because you get that feedback. You get that like that like, oh, people are actually reading it, people are interacting with it, people are sharing like their favorite bits on social media. So that's a really powerful way to like get you that last 20% of the way there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Oh, cool. Yeah, I forgot. I'll be in New York later this year if you want to get together.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
let's do
We'll,
it. I'm like,
we
oh
need
yeah,
to
wait.
out and have a good meal like in the old days, you know.
Yeah, I'll have the family in tow, and they are they love New York, so I think it will be a party. But
Well, come to South Brooklyn so I can show you like this neck of the woods. This is not a touristy area. And this is actually why I wanted to write the urban fantasy series set here, because nobody ever sets books in this part of the neck of the woods. It's all very residential for the most part. But there's still a lot of interesting things here, and we have great food. So so that's one thing is like, yeah, like come eat in this area. You will not be disappointed.
all right, it's a deal. Done. Print it. I'll let you know. It is going to happen for sure. I have planted it. I'll even write down the note just to double make sure. But I will write it down in NYC. Everyone can know what I wrote in my
Well, I mean, when you're making your trip, hopefully you will remember that I live in this area, so that'll
yeah,
be a
no,
reminder for you to let me know when you're showing up.
yeah, I know. I'm not going to say it now, but I will tell you when. I know when, but I
Okay.
will. You know what I mean. You know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
International man of mystery.
yeah, for sure. But it will happen. I will appear. And it's funny. I went to New York with my 6 year old, my daughter when she was 6, 4 years ago, and we were going to Brooklyn. We were getting on the train, and then there was an attack in Brooklyn, and so we couldn't get out of Manhattan, and the subways were shut down. So we couldn't get to Brooklyn. We haven't seen it yet. I've been there. I don't know if you still live in the same area that you were in before, but like I stayed with you one night before a photo tour, I think.
That's right. Yeah, I think yeah, I'm still living in the same house. So yeah,
Wow. Wow, that's awesome.
it's
I
my
had no idea.
house. So it's not like I'm not renting it. So yeah, I'm still here. My son grew up here. So yeah, and
Oh,
I
very
got
cool.
deep roots here. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really cool area. It was unlike anywhere I had been. Like you're by the water. There were like a bunch of diners everywhere, and it was very residential. It felt this is 25
Yep.
years ago now.
Yeah. But I mean, the area is much the same. Most of the diners are gone. They've all been replaced. Like sort of like the diner culture is actually you have to go to New Jersey now if you want a good diner,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
like, as a New Yorker, it sticks in my crow to say that, but they have better diners than we do at this point.
yeah.
So
That's heartbreaking, actually.
it's the truth. There's some really good diners out there, and I have to admit, like, I mean, I can't, I have to be fair, like, and I have to admit that they got us, and we still have better restaurants for sure, but they got better diners. But yeah, we have plenty to recommend for this area. So yeah, if you just bring the family, we'll go somewhere really nice. We'll show them, and they can see the ocean here. Like, I mean, I'm like, a 10-minute drive from the Atlantic Ocean. So it's
Yeah, well, it's a cool spot. Well, all right, man. It's great to see you. I
great to
will
see you.
see you later this year, and I look forward to checking out the game. It was say it one more time. I'm gonna write
Yeah,
it down.
it's reclusionthegame.com, and I'm going to put it in the chat so people can.
Yeah, when I send out the note, I'll put it in there because I'm pretty interested. I played a lot of Balatro on a vacation a year ago, and my family does not like Balatro for reasons that were discussed earlier. Like you can spend a lot of time on a phone these days, but obviously in my wheelhouse genre wise. So definitely interested to check it out.
Yeah, Bellatra is definitely one of our inspirations in the game.
It's so good.
Greatly because it is the best example of a shop game
Oh,
out
it's
there.
so good.
And we want elements from it, but also not like Bellatra is straight up a shop game. You don't actually need to play it. Like, I mean, playing hands is basically just wasting time.
Yeah, that's right.
It's entirely a shop game. We don't want to be just a shop game. We're doing like a lot of other things as well, but we
Yeah,
absolutely want that robust shop experience to be part of the game.
yeah. I feel like I get the vibe of like Hades meets Slay the Spire or Balatro is what I feel when what with what you're saying, and that sounds very good to me. So those are great things to mash together, especially if I don't have to play an action game. I played Hades and I'm like, I don't want to just click for hours. I actually love the speed of like a strategy game, right? So for me, it's like it sounds more up my alley than Hades was. Like Balatro
Yeah,
was
I think
100% overlap. Yeah.
this is probably more like Ascension meets that Slay the Spire than Hades meets Slay the Spire. That
Yeah, I mean, Ascension was another game I had to delete from my iPad. I loved that game on my iPad. I played it with Justin when he was making it, and I liked it then. But like on the iPad was just
one
you
of
could
my
spend.
earliest writing projects was to write the backstory for Ascension.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, that's crazy.
I don't know if it's still on their website or not, but yeah, I wrote,
It should be Justin
I,
Gary, who
it
I'm
should
sure
be.
I'll talk to at some point.
Hopefully it still is, like because I kind of like came up with like the logical explanation for everything that's going on in that game.
Yeah, I never. Yeah, it's a great game. It's funny. I will say this: one of the dads at my school, uh, he and I, when I met him, he was like, I'm really good at games. And I was like, oh, really? What games are you really good at? And so like Magic came up and I was like, I think I have a pretty good chance to win at that one.
Mhm.
But he said he was one of the top like 10 players at Ascension in the world at some point.
Oh,
And so I was trying to set up a match between him and Justin to see, what happens. But it still hasn't come together yet. I have talked to Justin about it. He said yes. The other fellow is still deciding whether or not he has the bandwidth for such a thing, but I'm hopeful.
yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah,
I've played that game a good amount of times, both on the iPad and with physical cards. This is like back when I actually had some time to play games, but it was a really really
yeah,
well designed game. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I think it did for that genre. Is what we're hoping to do for for roguelike deck builder because it really just kind of took a much drier sort of like deck building experience that existed at the time and then made it flavorful and exciting and kind of really leaped like advanced it by an entire degree, so that's what I hope that we can do as well.
yeah. It's just funny. Each of these chats, I'm like, these people are incredibly interesting, and no exception. I'm like, I had no idea 30 years ago everyone was interested, but now I do know that we are pretty lucky to know each other.
We really are, and it's just amazing how many different walks of life and like cool things that Magic players have done. And like, I mean, as you were kind of like collecting that information for your book, like we just kept coming up with more fascinating examples of like all these like really really cool, really cool things that people have gone on. But also, like, I mean, it's been a number of years, so ample time to succeed.
That's true. Maybe if you plot out like our classes or our groups progression against others, we're just normal.
Probably, but
Yeah,
we were always, like you said, we were always kind of outside the box, because like otherwise we wouldn't have spent all of our time playing competitive Magic. And I think that that's the reason why so many of these people, and it's exactly the areas of like game design, playing cards professionally, like poker. These are areas that are very clear something that our set would succeed at. So it's not surprising to me at all.
that makes sense to me. All right, Alex. Been great talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see you later this year.
See you then.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.